American novelist, televangelist, and preacher Clarence McClendon is famous. His contributions are widely recognized. He was born in the USA, and a formative spiritual encounter shaped his ministry later in life. The influence of spirituality on McClendon's upbringing was profound. He became a preacher and religious leader because he was exposed to Christianity at an early age through his parents and the church community. Despite the hardships that Clarence McClendon and his family endured as children, Clarence's faith in God enabled him to persevere and trust in God's plan. Being introduced to faith at a young age, particularly in times, helped McClendon develop a strong relationship with God, which was very beneficial to him. During his childhood, his family had many spiritual discussions, and his mother played an important role in these discussions and teachings. She was the driving force behind Clarence's spiritual growth and the setting in which his devotion to the gospel first took root. He and his family were regulars at church and other community gatherings, and he says that his life was changed by the power of religion and the camaraderie he felt there. Despite a profound pull toward the church from an early age, Clarence McClendon had a troubled childhood. He, like most children, went through phases of doubt and confusion, but God's word and prayer were enough to guide him through them. He came to understand his life's purpose and his calling to serve others through the ministry during these times of reflection. Even though Clarence came from a modest background, he found great peace and meaning in his life through his spiritual connection. It is possible to trace McClendon's participation in the leadership of his religious community back to his teenage years. He has held several positions, including that of youth leader, where he encouraged fellow teenagers to stay true to their faith. It was clear to everyone who knew him that he was meant for a greater purpose in life. His charisma and principles motivated others. Something bigger than himself was meant for him. A strong believer in religion, hope, and the power of community, Clarence McClendon was shaped into this character by his childhood. He became a prominent figure in the Christian community because of his upbringing, which had both difficult and good times, and because his family and church encouraged and supported him. Sharing the good news of God's unconditional love with the world has been McClendon's lifelong mission. The lessons he learned as a child laid the groundwork for this goal. Clarence McClendon learned the value of faith, perseverance, and community during his formative years. He was set up for the big role he would later play as a spiritual leader and preacher because of his upbringing, which was based on the teachings of the Bible and supported by a loving and compassionate family. His life serves as an inspiration to many, encouraging them to trust in God's plan for their lives and to live each day with kindness and purpose. Known for his work as a preacher and televangelist, Clarence McClendon has been through a lot in his life. One of the most trying times was when he had to visit the hospital for treatment of a serious illness. This event changed his life both personally and spiritually. After experiencing a health crisis, McClendon was compelled to take it easy and acknowledge his frailty and predicament. His condition necessitated prompt medical attention due to a potentially fatal obstruction in the bile duct, commonly referred to as a B duct blockage. In the midst of his ministry and global outreach, McClendon never had a moment to rest. The warning signals were subtle at first. In addition to the persistent abdominal pain, Clarence McClendon also felt sick to his stomach and extremely tired. He tried to push these feelings out of his mind, reasoning that they might be temporary or just the consequence of the stress from his busy schedule. But it was crystal clear that something was amiss when the pain intensified and his health continued to decline. He made an appointment with a doctor to get some peace of mind regarding his health. After a series of tests and imaging procedures, doctors diagnosed him with a clogged bile duct, a condition that, if untreated, can lead to serious liver damage, infections, and other devastating consequences. As far as McClendon is concerned, the diagnosis of this illness was a total shock to him, because he had always been very involved in his personal life and ministry. Now, lying in a hospital bed, facing the facts of his own health problems, he had spent years traveling, preaching, and motivating others. His life had been devoted to preaching the gospel and inspiring people. Worry washed over his loved ones, churchgoers, and supporters upon hearing the news of his hospital admission. It was a sobering realization for McClendon, who had always been the one to lend a helping hand and provide direction to others, to suddenly find himself in need of care and solace. During his time in the hospital, McClendon was showered with messages of love and support from those around him. His loved ones, his wife, children, and grandchildren were there for him every step of the way, offering support emotionally and physically. Along with words of comfort, they also prayed for him. The doctors and nurses who treated him were compassionate and did their best to alleviate his symptoms and find the treatment he needed. Words of encouragement and the realization that God was present in his life helped him persevere through the difficulties. Medications to reduce inflammation were administered, drainage procedures were performed, and his liver function was closely monitored during the course of several medical operations. While in treatment, McClendon thought back on the wisdom his illness had bestowed upon him. Having spent his life ministering to others and spreading the gospel, this experience taught him the importance of self-care and drawing strength from God in times of weakness. He admitted that he had neglected his own health on occasion because his career had always revolved around helping others. Being sick was a wake-up call that taught him the importance of self-care, both for his own health and so he can keep helping others without getting sick himself. Although he was still recovering, McClendon remained steadfast in his religious convictions. Despite the uncertainty surrounding his health, he found solace in his relationship with God, which included seeking his healing and having faith in his purpose. The fact that his life's work was more important than his appearance gave him peace of mind, and he knew that his ministry would grow despite any difficulties he faced. Spending time in the hospital and fighting off a disease that could have killed him made him appreciate his life and the chance to help others all the more. About a week after his operation, McClendon started to feel stronger than before. He was ready to get back to his ministry duties after taking some time to rest and recuperate. Both his progress and his recovery made his doctors happy. Because of the event, it affected him greatly on an emotional and professional level. This opened his eyes to the transience of life and the importance of making the most of each moment by living a life that mattered. After receiving so much help from his loved ones and colleagues in his hour of need, he realized how important it is to have a strong community and how powerful prayer can be. When Clarence McClendon got back to traveling and preaching, it was his congregation. In telling his followers the account of his journeys, he hoped to encourage them to trust in God's plan even when circumstances seemed bleak. An enormous number of people found hope in his moving story of rehabilitation and recovery. He brought to his listeners' notice the reality that everyone faces problems in life, whether they be physical, emotional, or spiritual. However, he also emphasized that with God's grace and power, we can overcome any difficulty. The health crisis he was going through made him face the reality that he was weak. During this difficult time, he learned very important lessons about the need of health, self-care, and relying on God's power. It meant a lot to him that his loved ones were there for him as he got well. His story became an ode to the efficacy of prayer, faith, and persistence. Through McClendon's healing process, we can remember that we can still grow spiritually into new life, even when we are physically unable to do so.